This is a brief overview of Hurricanes Lesson 3. Again, this lesson was taught over more than one class period, but I'm going to go through the concepts and some of the vocabulary that we used while we were learning this lesson. Again, the first thing they did when they came into my classroom was get out their agenda, write their homework, and write their objective. I think I said in my last video that in our new spiral bound agendas, there is no place for the objective. There's only a place for the homework, which is kind of why I've decided to make these videos. I think that if the parents were looking at their agenda and they were looking at their objective, they knew what the students were focused on that day. So, for example, students can describe what people experienced during Hurricane Andrew, and the parent could ask their child, "Hey, what's Hurricane Andrew? What did Hurricane Andrew do? Where did Hurricane Andrew hit?" Or I saw you were learning about Hurricane Andrew in Miss Meyer's class. Why don't you tell me about it? And the student could tell you what they learned that day, and it just gives you an idea as a parent what your kids are learning in class. And I always like that. So again, I try and differentiate between their take-home folder, which is a different color based on who their homeroom teacher is, and their banana yellow English folder that we keep in the classroom to hold our English materials. So after we write in our agenda, after we get out any papers that we need to turn in or put away any papers that we need to take home, we put that folder away completely and just focus on our English folder. They had a page for Tuesday, lesson 3, and I asked them to put their finger on the bell ringer. I've noticed that some students were struggling to find where we were on the page and follow along. So I feel like if I stop and say, okay, put your finger on, and then if they can't find it, their shoulder partner can show them where we are, or if I notice that they're consistently struggling with keeping up with us, I can make sure that I am going over and showing them where we are. So our bell ringer was again another fragment. The fragment is either the subject or the predicate. The subject, a reminder, the subject is the who or what, the predicate is the action. In this bell ringer, they had 3 subjects and or 3 fragments, and they needed to decide if they were a subject or a predicate. And then if it was a subject, they had to add the predicate to it to make it a complete sentence. If it was a predicate, if it was a subject, they needed to add the predicate to it to make it a complete sentence. Then we reviewed our answers. So if this was the subject here, Hurricane Andrew, then we needed to add a predicate to it or an action. So the example that I provided was ruined houses and buildings. So Hurricane Andrew ruined houses and buildings. That's what it did. So is this a fragment? Florida residents lost everything they owned. So the fragment was actually lost everything they owned. And so they had to decide who lost everything they owned. And we knew that we've been studying the effects of Hurricane Andrew, and Hurricane Andrew happened in Florida. So Florida residents could have been one, the people could have been one, families could have been one, people in Florida. There were several different subjects they could have added to make this a complete sentence. So I want to activate their prior knowledge, information that we've received previous days or information that they have from previous experiences, so that they can make predictions, that they can make educated guesses, so they can make inferences. So what predictions do you have for how Hurricane Andrew impacted the people, communities, and environment in Florida? Why? And then here's an example. I predict Hurricane Andrew caused devastation to homes, businesses, schools, and other buildings. It destroyed millions of dollars worth of property. It caused significant damage to the environment by destroying landscape and killing animals. This was a fill in the blank for students so that they could, this was a model of a good response. So I wanted them to see, I don't expect them to write like this, but I wanted them to see what it could look like. We reread parts of the text and asked questions. So this is a portion of the text right here, but Miami had been at the edge of the hurricane. The center of the storm had hit to the south, bulldozing towns, the towns of Homestead and Florida City, 20 miles inland. They had been crushed not by the sea, but by the wind. They looked like they had been bombed and 22 people had died. The question is, what phrases does the author use to describe the damage caused by Hurricane Andrew? Again, we're focused on descriptions, vivid language, things that help us picture the scene in our head, right? So, bulldozing towns, crushed not by the sea, but by the wind, looked as if they had been bombed. Bulldozing, crushed, and bombed. All of those are vivid phrases and vivid statements that can help the student understand what it is that they were looking at. And then we looked at it again for a deeper meaning, looking for facts. Facts are data. Facts are details that are not exaggerated. They're not colored in a way that would make you picture the information. They're just giving you the straight details. So, for example, 22 people died, right? So it hit 20 miles inland. That is a fact. 22 people died. That is a fact. All of the other, Miami had been at the edge of the hurricane. That is a fact. All of the informations like bulldozing and crushed and bombed. Those are the descriptions. Another question for deeper meaning. And all of these are things that we went over and we discussed. A couple of them were done with Ripple, where we ask the question, I talk about what I think the answer would be, I give them the opportunity to write their answer down, then I give them a safe space to share their answer without blurting it out to everyone. They're just sharing it with one person, and then we talk as a class. And then I give them the answer. I also give them the opportunity to fill in the blank below their answer to look to see if they're answering appropriately, if they are if they're understanding. This was a description chart. So we're looking for descriptions or facts, like this one right here. Andrew destroyed 20,000 houses. That's a fact. Buildings were ripped out of the ground. That's a description, right? Houses were kindling wood. Trailer homes looked like crushed soda cans. That's a description. 250,000 people camped out in the ruins. That is a fact. So the students can see the difference between descriptions and facts. We read big winds and big damage starting at the specific place. The question is, what are the Everglades, right? So I showed them several pictures of the Everglades and explained to them that it's a piece of wilderness that's set aside to be preserved in its natural state. It is set up to preserve life forms that live there. So preserve means to set aside, to save, to take care of, right? So that's what the Everglades is for. How did Hurricane Andrew affect the environment of Florida? Again, this is another one where we did Ripple, where we talked about it, we wrote our response, and then we talked about it again, and I gave them a sentence stem to complete. So we kept reading, and we have more Ripple questions here. How did Hurricane Andrew affect the animals in the Everglades? Well, fortunately, most of them survived the park, in the park well. But it damaged their environment, and that's a problem. So, listen, think, share with a partner, one person. We are answering these questions. I'm again giving them the details on how to use Ripple as a big focus. It takes us a while to use Ripple, because I give the student, I ask the question and then I model my thinking for about a minute. Then I give them about a minute to answer, to think about it, and about 2 minutes to write their answer down. Then I give them about a minute to discuss it with their partner. Then we have about 5 minutes. It takes about 8 minutes a question. At this point, I'm sure as we use this skill, this concept, over the course of the year, they will become faster at it. But right now, I want to make sure that they're understanding the information. They did struggle with unscrambling the words of a sentence. We've gone over it several times, and a lot of students just kind of stare at the page. So that's going to be something that I integrate throughout the year until the students are able to look at a set of words and put it together. What is the subject? Where is the subject? Would the subject go first in the sentence? What words can go together? And then they left class. So again, we do everything in an organized way. They had to put their folders away. They had to keep their desk neat because they're sharing it with other people. So we want to be considerate. Step 1 means they stand up. Step 2 means they tuck in their chairs. Step 3 means they line up in alphabetical order to go to either their next class or to enrichment. There are several vocabulary words. I will create a video just for vocabulary, and parents can help the students learn the vocabulary at home if they would like. And also, if you have any questions, please send me an email.